بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين المنتجبين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. For the hastening the return of our Imam, let's recite the salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
The afternoon of Ashura is the beginning of the leadership in the imamah of Imam Zainab al-Abidin salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Up to that point, Imam Hussein was steering the ship. From that point onwards, Imam Zainab al-Abidin now. A very difficult time, difficult circumstances. He comes and becomes the Imam of the Ummah. We don't understand, I believe, the responsibility aspect of the Imams. They were responsible. We sometimes talk about the right of leadership and governance. The Imams weren't too concerned about the right in the sense that, I have this right. When Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Sabartu wa fil ayni qada, I was patient after the demise of the Prophet. I weighed the situation. The khutbah is in Nahjul Balagha. I weighed the situation. I realized that I either have to be patient or with an injured arm, I've got to fight. Meaning, I don't have much support. It's symbolic language, metaphoric. So in the end, I concluded that I need to be patient. But I was patient while there was a thorn in my eye and a bone stuck in my throat. It's the difficulty, okay? What's the difficulty? You could have just been relaxed at home, you guys didn't want me. Why was it difficult? Difficulty is because responsibility. Amir al-Mu'mineen is responsible. They say when the Prophet came down from the mountain, when he was made, هُوَ الَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ. There's ba'ath. There's a time at age 40, the Prophet was made a Rasul. The Prophet was coming down from the mountain, he was shivering. Some unfortunately have misunderstood that. Al-ayadu billah, God forbid, some have said he didn't know what he saw and he was confused and ridiculous things. This is the Prophet of Allah, he was already receiving revelation. He was seeing angels as a child before. If Jesus had revelation, he spoke to his mother when he was born. The Prophet of Allah is above all prophets. Don't misunderstand him. So it's when he's coming down, he's shivering. It's not about not knowing what he saw, about fear or anything like that. It was the heavy responsibility that was put on his shoulder. And he was shivering. It's huge. God tells him, you are responsible to guide these people. God puts that huge responsibility on his shoulders. If you're a responsible person, Imam Zainab al-Abidin becomes the Imam of the Ummah. It's a huge responsibility. We think about it from the perspective of they're in difficulty and they're being oppressed in this way, and as individuals, just as normal people, just like you and I, we don't have any responsibility. We're just, if anything, if somebody causes us hardship or trouble, we're dealing with the hardship or difficulty. We think Imam Zain al-Abidin's difficulty is that, no, Imam Zain al-Abidin is not worried about his physical health. He's not worried about any of that. What he is worried about is, from this point onward, guiding the ummah of the Prophet, as that's his responsibility, guiding people. All of mankind. Every little decision is going to make a difference. Think about it, Imam Zain al-Abidin just coming out of Karbala. Now you're responsible to guide whom? The same people that are taking you to these cities. You're supposed to guide these people. Think about that responsibility. The same people in Kufa, they're throwing stones at you, guide them. Didn't the Prophet try guiding? He went to Ta'if and he propagated his message. What did they do? They threw stones at him. What did he do? Did he say, oh, curse you guys? No, prophets don't do that. Imams don't do that. They went to Sham. The people of Sham mistreated them. They were misinformed. Imam Zain al-Abidin, what's his approach? He's looking at these people as his people, that he is responsible by God. God has made him responsible to guide the people of Sham. Can you imagine that? I don't think, I have trouble. I can't see that. I have a little mistreatment by someone in the community, and I just feel so bad, so much hatred about the person, thinking about me being responsible to guide them. I just don't want to see them. Think about that, the responsibility of Imam Zain al-Abidin becomes the Imam. Now, yesterday we spoke about the tactics that Imam Zain al-Abidin started after he became the Imam, to spread the message and to guide people, was by training individuals into going from being an ordinary, an average person, to a person with a great caliber of knowledge, in-depth understanding, not pieces of information, not memorization. Not like some of these people, they've memorized 600 plus pages of the Quran, but when you ask them about the meanings, it's zero. Even the way they recite it, sometimes I'm wondering, do you understand what you're reciting? I mean, it sounds beautiful when you don't understand what the guy is saying, when you don't understand what the verse is saying. When you think about and you understand what the verses are trying to say, and you think about the tone of the reciter, like there is no connection whatsoever. It's like reading, let's say, the Marsiyas that are, just to give you an idea of what I mean by that. If somebody comes here and recites them in the Marsiya tone, but what he is reading has to do with Milad, what would you tell the person? Like, what are you thinking? You don't read that with Marsiya in this occasion. The reciter's voice sounds beautiful, it's nice, but then you think about what's being recited, these are the words there, there's no connection. The Imam didn't train people with 600 pages memorized in their head. Understanding, تفقه. لولا نفر من كل فرقة منهم طائفة ليتفقهوا في الدين. The verse in the Quran, I believe it's in Surah Tawbah. Why doesn't a group go and try to learn them and gain tafaqquh, deep understanding? Imam Zain al-Abidin taught these individuals, gave them deep understanding, which of course cannot be obtained without spirituality. We talked about this, I don't want to repeat that. There's something else that Imam Zain al-Abidin did in spreading the culture of the Ahlul Bayt. The intellectual and the spiritual is one thing that he did. But another thing that he did, he started, and the Imams after him continued, has to do with another aspect of the human being, that is actually what bad people, evil people, tyrants also tap into to get people to move in the wrong direction. The Ahlul Bayt knew this is what God has placed into people. You use that in order to guide people as opposed to. That is their emotions. You have your intelligent, people are intelligent, they have an intellect, they have an understanding. There's a spiritual inclination, spiritual growth and progress, that's a need that we have. There are various emotions that we have. Our emotions, love and hate, that's something that can be used against or for Islam. For example, the tactic was used by Muawiyah against Amir al-Mu'mineen. What's the tactic? Create lies, spread lies about Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen is an individual, is a person. If you get to know him, there is no way on earth you're going to dislike him. Even bad people are going to like him. You can't help it. There's nothing but goodness in this man. Right? But you want people not to like him, so what are you going to do? You're going to create lies about who this person actually is. You will use language, if you know how to do this. You want to use language that's going to hit the right spot in the heart of your audience, to get them to hate the person so much they don't want to even hear the person. What are you playing on? The emotions of your audience. Muawiyah did a lot of that. When you read in history the way he gathered the masses, the people in Sham, they were Muslim. We think that, they were Muslim. They read Quran, they recited the Quran, they loved the Prophet. They had many companions there that spoke very highly of the Prophet, and they really genuinely did. Now when this conflict came about, and Muawiyah wants to manipulate the love of the Prophet being used against the Prophet, the love of the Quran being used against the Quran, he played on the emotions of the companions of the Prophet and the people, the setup he had for making it sound like, oh my God, Uthman was killed, it was an act of oppression, this, that, the other. He cared zero. I don't want to use bad language here, but he cared. In fact, if you look at history, he's actually responsible for the death of Uthman. Right? That hasn't been thoroughly discussed yet. There are various links that you can find that Muawiyah was actually responsible for the death of Uthman. He set up the scene. He wanted to lead afterwards. And he cared. But he set up the scene in Damascus. When people came in, oh my God, such a thing. Playing on what? Playing on the emotions. Taking concepts. So the idea is, you can use the emotions of people, the love and the hate that people can have, to either take them in the wrong direction. One of the other things, I'll say it in a language that hopefully won't be misunderstood. If you look historically, look at the best words to understand the history of the time of the Prophet and onwards, obviously, is the words of the Ma'sumin, the Imams. Look, there's a khutbah in Nahj al-Balagha, Amir al-Mu'mineen speaks. It's referred to, it's known as khutbah al-Shiqshaqiyya. Okay? That he gives a description of what happened after the demise of the Prophet. The line I gave you, that he says, I weighed my options and I decided I need to be patient, it's in this khutbah Shiqshaqiyya. He describes the time of the first three Khalifas. In very short, very brief, it's just like 2-3 sentences for each of them. When it gets to the second Khalifa, for instance, he talks about how rough he was, which is the case. And by the way, if you look today, those who aspire to get closer to him as opposed to the Ahlul Bayt, you'll see a lot more roughness in them. You know what I mean? You've seen that. Taliban, for example, that try to, look up to individuals like that in history, you see that roughness in their behavior. Very, very rough. Very violent. Amir al-Mu'minin describes him. He says the first Khalifa puts Khilafah in. Say salawat, please. Let me see if I can. Hawzatin khashna'a. Okay. In a place of roughness, or a rough place. I'll just use that. It's a rough translation of the word. There's not much that you can actually look back at and say, oh, it was an amazing period. Now, what's the perception of people currently, the masses, of the time, of that period? It's actually considered the best period of Khilafah after the Prophet. That's the way it's described, that's the way it's depicted. And based on that, there is love created for a person, for individuals, that when you look back at them, honestly, if you actually look at everything that's there, there's really, you won't find things that would allow you to love too much. At best, even if we don't take the correct version of people not adhering to the teachings of the Prophet and supporting Ali ibn Abi Talib as the Khalifa of the Prophet, leave that aside. Let's say that's not the case. Let's say we're not right on that. Okay? Let's just say, okay, we agree with that, which we don't. Put that aside. Just evaluate that period, regardless of whether he's a legitimate leader or he isn't. Just evaluate that period and the personality, the character of this individual, as it actually was. And then compare that to the words of Ali ibn Abi Talib. No comparison, but unfortunately we'll have to do that. Compare these two. Who are you going to naturally get inclined towards? We're not saying this because we're lovers of the Ahlul Bayt and we just want to do that. No, honestly, if you had hours, we had 8 hours, I'll do 4 hours of that period and 4 hours of Ali ibn Abi Talib. During the same period, not the Khilafah, not the time of the Prophet, the same period of time. Look at Ali, look at the ruler. What direction is your heart going to move towards? But elements are used to tap into the emotions of people. And then when you have masses, this is important, this is the point I'm trying to get to, okay? When you get a people developing as part of their culture love towards a person, a character is admired, is looked up to, whether they're good or bad. You can do a lot with that. The community, that people naturally get inclined towards that person. You will see that the behavior of those people starts to resemble the one that they admire. Emotions are very important. Imam Zain al-Abidin used this in a very positive way. The event of Karbala, what happened on the day of Ashura, leading up to it, on the day, afterwards, was something that you could definitely use for divine reasons, instigate the emotions of people in two ways. There's two aspects to the emotions of people. I use love and hate. Imam Zain al-Abidin used the emotions that can easily be tapped into using Karbala for both of those. Love of Hussein, hatred of the enemies of Hussein. Imam Zain al-Abidin started this. It was difficult, obviously, the enemies of Islam. His enemies saw what this is leading to. He had to work very carefully and very gradually, very subtly, going for Arba'in to Karbala was part of that. When going back to Medina, setting up what we call a Majlis outside of Medina, according to the accounts, before entering the city. Everybody knew he's come. He made it known, but he said, we're not going to enter the city. He sent someone in, make an announcement, tell people the family of Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib, salamullah alayhim ajma'in, is returned. And to make announcements about what has happened to Imam al-Hussein, rally people up. All of these are the emotions of people coming out. Bringing them out of the city, now seeing the family of Imam al-Hussein. And then Imam Zain al-Abidin sitting there, according to the account, waiting for people to come and then describing what happened. We can see it, you can understand this in this way that, oh, it's someone that's been hurt and then he just, or you can understand this correctly. Imam Zain al-Abidin is doing imamah. This is part of his imamah. He's guiding these people. In what way? In this way. The information, the way it's done, the way it's presented, the way people are gathered, the scene that is before them, the women and children that have just arrived. You don't even give them rest. Like, they just arrived. Think about that. These women and children to Medina after a long, tiring trip that just the last portion of it from Karbala to Medina in itself should have been tiring, even if they hadn't gone through the rest of it, even if they hadn't lost all their loved ones. But no, this is a mission. This is part of the imamah. The women and children are working with him to guide people. This is the way we should see the Ahlul Bayt. So from there, and then the different instances you hear, Imam Zain al-Abidin takes every opportunity to mention in an emotional way what happened in Karbala. It does two things. It naturally gets your heart to feel grief and sorrow for Imam al-Hussein, which increases your love for him, and a hatred and a dislike towards those who did that. Recite salawat, please.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
The Imams after him continued that. Imam Zain al-Abidin is the founder of this, the founder of all of these. The Majlis that we have here is Imam Zain al-Abidin. He started this. And the rest of the Imams continued with it, emphasized all the ahadith, shed tears for Hussein, this, that, all of the ahadith we have. The seerah that we have of the Ahlul Bayt about setting up sessions for that, getting poets to recite poetry, encouraging them in different ways to do so, and so on and so forth. But let's not forget this love that they created through this exercise that taps into, this is, we would call this, I don't know if they do call this or not, call it this or not. The leader used the word fanavari, which is the Farsi equivalent of technology. That usually doesn't refer to anything. It refers to machines or electronics and things like that. But I'll just use it right now. You guys can maybe help me with a better term. A technique maybe, or developing a technique or a technology of guiding people through their emotions. The Umayyads had their version, the Ahlul Bayt had their version, and of course one of the things that we can easily notice is that the Umayyads died, their mission did not succeed, and the Ahlul Bayt is alive and it's increasing, it's still working today. We all have majalis. Anywhere any Shia is found or anyone becomes Shia, they start setting up majalis, and that becomes a place where the love of the Ahlul Bayt increases, and the hatred towards the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt increases as well. That's so ongoing. But why the love and the hate? Let's again understand this. This is the Imam of Imam Zain al-Abidin. Imam Zain al-Abidin is trying to guide people from where they are to the goals that Allah wants the Imam to lead them towards, as individuals and as a community of believers. Mankind is moving in a direction. They're supposed to move in a direction. The Imam is leading them in that direction. And there's various aspects of the human being that need to be in line with that, all being used to help move in that direction. Imam Zain al-Abidin doesn't just want the love and the hate to be there. No, when you love someone, it has certain results. It has an output. It causes you to do things. Okay? Maytham at-Tammar, may Allah bless his soul, this great man. His love for Ali, I believe, these strong emotions which are supposed to be there, and they're supposed to be strong, it's what drives you. Imagine someone knowing, being told by Ali ibn Abi Talib, this is the tree that they're going to hang you from. And they're going to chop your limbs off. And they will cut your tongue out. For you to be given that information, and then you go buy that piece of land, you pray there, waiting for the time to come. And then when the time comes, according to the account I read, close to Ashura, he was trying to rally people up. He started mentioning the fada'il of Ali ibn Abi Talib. People are getting rallied up. The government needs to do something about this. And so they get him and they put him, you've heard the story. Imagine someone's limb being hanging from a tree, your limbs cut, you're bleeding. Ali told me your tongue is going to get cut out as well. He continues. I don't know how you can do that. You fight the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt like that. That hatred against the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt translates into this type of behavior against the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt, and love for Ahlul Bayt again. It feels, you see how, I don't know if I'm able to portray this right in my words. It's so loving towards Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Mujtaba, and Imam al-Hussein. Out of love, you make this sacrifice, and it's so harsh against the enemies of Islam. It's words, but it cuts through. And how do you know that? Because of their behavior. You see how they're reacting to this. They're using sharp blades to do this, not once, so many times. That means it really hurts. It's painful. They feel the pain. It's harsh against them, and so soft and beautiful towards the Ahlul Bayt. That's what the love and hate is supposed to translate. And the love and hate, brothers, today, it needs to grow strong. It needs to be the same, but not a historic love and a historic hate. You've heard this before. This is a reminder. The Ahlul Bayt are not, God forbid, they're not dead. The Ahlul Bayt are alive, which means their movement is alive, and the Imam of our time is alive, and he's the same Imam that Imam Zain al-Abidin was. The love of Imam Zain al-Abidin, the love of Imam al-Hussein, the love of Imam al-Sadiq, the love of all of the Imams, and the love of Imam Sahib al-Zaman through Karbala should increase the love of them and the hatred towards the enemies of Imam al-Hussein, of Imam Zain al-Abidin, of Imam Sadiq, of Imam Sahib al-Zaman today. Imam Sahib al-Zaman currently has enemies. I don't know if it was the night majlises or one of the home majalis. I mentioned this and I said I can't explain too much. That one of the scholars moved from Qom to Baghdad to be with the deputy and the representative of the Imam of our time. He loved the Imam so much, he moved. He wanted to be close to him, and he kept asking him, when was the last time you saw the Imam? What did he look like? Can you tell me something about him? Something he said. In one instance, the response was, last time I saw the Imam, he was by the Kaaba praying to Allah to help him against his enemies. It's the minor occultation. The Imam is in occultation. He's talking about a current enemy of his, not an enemy in the year 61 after Hijrah, Karbala, not an enemy of Imam Sadiq, not an enemy of Imam Al-Askari, his enemy. I told you about the assassins being sent. He's actively working against, because he's leading the people and there's others leading people in a different direction, in the opposite direction. Obviously there's conflict there. Whoever is leading people in the opposite direction of the Ahlul Bayt is the enemy of the Ahlul Bayt. The love of the Ahlul Bayt and the hatred towards the A'da of the Ahlul Bayt has got to be current. It's got to fuel your emotions to be able to do what Maytham at-Tammar did, what the Ashab of Imam al-Hussein did, what Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi did during those times today against the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt. For the Ahlul Bayt, and being so soft and so loving and sacrificing for them. And do something that makes the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt feel the pain. Inshallah, we hope that we're able to follow the Ahlul Bayt in that way. Sallallahu alayhi ya Abu Abdullah. Sallallahu alaykum ya